What up, growers? Jordan River here with more GrowCast. Thank you for tuning in. Things are going so well, absolutely so well. A lot of people have been asking about GrowCast Seed Co. We've been taking care of the members over at patreon.com/GrowCast. But if you want to get your hands on a pack, we do have some Peach Supernova and some Peach Quake left. Visit growcastpodcast.com/order if you want to check out Seed Co's if you're a non-member. And if you are a member, then you already know. But I wanted to throw that out there for those who have been asking. Save some DM time. Check out growcastpodcast.com/order. Today's episode is with Brandon Rust. It's really, really good. I know you're going to enjoy it. Before we jump in, got to shout out AC Infinity. God, one of my favorite partners. They make the sexiest fans and the even sexier tents. ACinfinity.com, code GrowCast15. They really are the best fans in the game. They're the only fans that I would recommend. They're feather light, they're extremely powerful, they're whisper quiet, and they're affordable. The Simple series, the S series, has the 10-speed fan controller, which is probably going to be all you need, but bump it up to the T series with the smart controller. Kicks on and off at temperatures, humidities, whatever you need, and pick up a tent. They are the most affordable, durable tent that I can see on the market right now, in my humble opinion. And if you can catch one before they're out of stock, you're going to love it. You're going to love the way you look. Thank you so much, everybody. Let's get into today's show. Oh, ACinfinity.com. Use code GrowCast15. All over the place today. Well, you're going to love today's episode, so enjoy, everybody. Thank you for listening. Enjoy the program. Hello, podcast listeners. You are now listening to GrowCast. I'm your host, Jordan River, and I want to thank you for tuning in today. Before we get started, I urge you to share the show. Spread GrowCast. It's how we grow. Make sure you're subscribed so you catch every episode, and give us a good rating and review. I appreciate it, folks. Today we have... Oh, what a special surprise. Brandon Rust. You know him, you love him, master organic gardener. I'm sure he doesn't like when people call him that. What's up, Brandon Rust? How you doing today, buddy?
What's going on, man? I'm having a great day, and I'm glad to be back on the show.
Hell yeah.
For all the listeners who aren't familiar with my work, they can find the body of my work and kind of what I do on social media on Instagram at Rust, RUST.Brandon, BRANDON. You can also find a link in my bio to my company, Bokashi Earthworks, which is a biological fertilizer and microbial inoculant company. And you can also find a link to my farm that I have co-founded and co-own out here in Oklahoma.
And that's Black Label Organics. Do I have that right?
That's correct.
So I didn't know, forgive me, I didn't know that you were a co-founder. I knew that you were kind of running the show over there, but I didn't know what it looked like, if you had started it or, you know, if you were just on the team. What have you been up to since, the last time we spoke was maybe a couple of years ago now. What's been going on?
Oh, it hasn't been that long. It's maybe been, I want to say,
Gotta be 12 months.
Maybe about a year.
Yeah.
Maybe about a year now. The last time we spoke, I was the cultivation and science director over at Majestic Craft Cannabis here in Oklahoma, which is a cannabis company formed by a group of investors. And at that point, I didn't have my own farm. I was still doing the Bokashi stuff.
That's right.
But a lot has changed. I'm still the cultivation director there. I do not spend as much time. I mostly do the science and agronomy work there. They have an excellent team put into place there.
That's cool.
And they are, they're productive.
Nice. That's cool.
I had another opportunity to come in and be a owner operator at a 40-acre farm here in Oklahoma. And that's Black Label Organics. And currently we're running mixed light greenhouses, which
I noticed that
are environmentally controlled. They keep temperatures and super well. The quality is phenomenal. It's just like the indoor that I grow.
Wow.
So, I've seen that the most cost-effective way, I think, to produce high quality cannabis is the way that we're currently doing it, which is doing mixed light, organics, very cost effective. And because we have such good greenhouses that keep, our environment in the proper range, even in, it was -8 here, inside the greenhouse was 74.
Wow.
So it's like having indoor, but with the power of the sun to back it.
Well, I follow you on Instagram, and you're right. I've seen your setup, and I go, what is he in? It looks like you're indoor because you have the lights hung, but you're saying that's a high tech greenhouse that allows you to kind of let sunlight in and have the grow lights hung.
Yep. And so, it's mixed light. What we plan on doing is, because we bootstrapped this whole project ourselves, it's self-funded. We didn't have outside investors. We had to use double-ended HPS because it was the most cost-effective method for us to go. But probably within the next year, maybe less, we'll switch out all those double-ended HPS to full spectrum LED lighting. Nice. Because LED, I run all LEDs in all of my indoor spots, and I do have a shipping container that's getting set up. It's going to be a vertical two-tier LED grow, which is just strictly for R&D breeding, which I think we're going to talk a little bit about that later in the show, and for just different kind of experiments that I might want to run. It's kind of like my personal playground.
That's fun, dude. That's super fun. But yeah, as far as the HPS, man, the more I talk to these lighting guys, it's like, there's definitely something to come with spectrum and tuning the spectrum and all this, but it's so far down on the impact list when it comes to end quality. If you take a look at things like genetics and grower talent and fertigation method, I would put all those things above spectrum personally. And I think that it shows in your pictures, man. Some really impressive stuff. Are you growing all your own? Are you fully vertical? Or do you have other strains in your garden?
We have a lot of different varieties that we're currently running. We just finished a big pheno hunt, and I'm doing another one to start off the shipping container. It's I'm just waiting on my my racks so I can hang all my lights and put everything in there.
Okay, well why don't we go there? Talk to me about these pheno hunts. Talk to me about your breeding work in general. I know your Limarilla is probably your flagship, but just tell me about what you're doing as far as the breeding. I'd love to hear it.
Yeah. I've been cultivating for a long time. I was fortunate, and I'm not sure if I mentioned this on other podcasts, when I was, maybe 18 or 19, I had the opportunity to work with a couple of guys who had been growing indoors since 92. And I was, kind of taken under their wing, and I worked with them for 2 years. We were running all hydroponics back there. We were checkerboarding metal halide and HPS lights to get like a full spectrum back then too.
Nice.
We operated multiple houses. This was the guys that created the Afghani bull rider out in San Diego. And
well,
actually, one of those guys is now one of my partners out here in Oklahoma.
Huh.
So it kind of went full circle in that aspect, where he brought me on and kind of taught me the ways back in the day, and I'm doing something completely different, and I've been able to bring him on and show him kind of a new technique using the science and data collection.
Right. So you've been cultivating for a long time, but the breeding is something that's pretty new, right? Or is that incorrect?
No, I've been doing it for a long time too. I think the first cross that I had was, I had a variety. It was called the Green Donkey. That was my very first one. I think it was back in 2004.
Oh shit! Oh, I apologize. Forgive me.
Yeah, no, I've been, but here's the thing. I've been, crossing varieties together for a really long time, but I haven't been doing large scale breeding or seed releases like I have been currently. So that's probably why the misconception.
Exactly.
I just released my first seed line.
Oh, that's cool, man.
Last year. So it's kind of new to the public, to people that are getting this stuff. What I'm doing in the shipping containers is, I have a bunch of different varieties that I've crossed. Some of the Limarilla, some cuts that I have that I found, a gas cut from Capulator. I crossed that into his Mac V2, the Limarilla. I have some Black Lime Reserve I got from Mean Gene, and some other seed stock that I got from, I think my name is Earl on IG.
Nice.
And where I'm just hunting through some varieties. I'm gonna pick out some, males out of the Black Lime Reserve, the Limarilla, and the Gas V2, and do a big hunt on the male side, so I can try to find a good male that I can just continue doing line work with.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And but I've been doing it for a long time. I've made all types of different varieties. A lot of them I'm running currently. The Death Breath is one of the ones that I won third place at a cup with out here in Oklahoma.
Right.
And
I saw
it's
that.
Limarilla, which is the Black Lime Reserve by Gorilla Glue. And then I took that cut and I crossed it with another variety that I had, which was Purple Kush times Grape God.
Ooh.
So I have varieties that I've made a long time ago that I'm currently running. And I have old seed stock from, 2008, 2011, just different times when I did small little projects just for myself.
That's huge. That's what people want to hear. Like, that's the perfect time to launch your own line. Hey, why limes? Was it because you were so enamored with the strain and you felt you needed to use it, or is that a profile that you've really been after for a long time? Like, you seem to have a fascination with limes. I love limes personally, but why you and limes?
It's not so much just the lime. It's really the complexity of the terpene profile.
Ah,
The Limarilla, it has like a lime taste and profile, but up front it's just so pungent, and it has this really like floral chemical soap up front, and the
oof.
lime is kind of like intertwined to all of that.
Oof.
It's wonderful smoke. It tastes great. And there's, it's one of the things that I'm using currently for some of the breeding that I'm doing.
Man, well, I think my fans are pretty familiar with you just from your old episode, but you're going to get a rush of DMs, so I hope you're prepared. Prepare yourself. Um, really, really impressive stuff at rust.brandon on Instagram. That is his main platform. Go and give him a follow if you haven't already. What else should we talk about on breeding before I ask you some questions about organic inputs and other things? You mentioned male selection. I know this is probably a question that you've been hit with 1,000 times, and it's a question that we've asked all the breeders on this show virtually. But male selection, you do the stem rub, you look for structure. Some people take a look at when they show sex. Do you have any male selection tips that you think would be surprising or interesting to my audience?
Well, what I'm looking for is, first of all, I'm looking for structure, because that for me is one of the things that I want to take a close look at, because my cultivation style doesn't really allow for plants that are super stretchy. I don't like that. I like things that are short and squat that can really support themselves. I don't have to do multiple trellising on, because I'm working on a commercial scale, and so I need to have the ability to make these things labor efficient,
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
if that makes sense. And also, obviously, the onset of flowering. I'm also looking for characteristics. I don't particularly like males that start to flower with like during a vegetative cycle, because you see it really often if they get root bound or if they get stressed.
Ooh.
I don't like using males that show that particular characteristic. And then if a male shows any type of intersex at all, if it has the
Little pistol shooting out.
any female parts on it at all,
Right.
those are obviously no go at all.
Right. Right. So you're saying, and this is something I've heard before as well, but kind of in a different presentation. You're saying that if they hold their vegetative state as a male very, very well, even when they're left in a pot, even when they're vegging for a very long time, that's an attribute that you like.
Yeah, I don't like to see the onset of flowering with stress.
Right. 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 That's good. And then, yeah, like you said, a structure. Is there like a symmetry you're looking for, or does that not matter so much?
Short and squat. I like the node spacing to be very close together,
Tight, yeah.
and I like to have these kind of shorter squat bushes that and the way that I test that is I top really early in a plant's life after they've developed a couple of nodes, and I can really see which ones are going to show that lateral branching
Ooh,
pattern.
I love it.
And there are different varieties that do that over others. So I try to pick those ones that are really short and stocky, but also grow really fast, because what I'm looking for is a lot of auxiliary bud sites. So that way when we go, I pinch off the apical site, and I want to see, a lot of sites where, flower is going to form.
Yeah, they all top differently. You say you top early too. I like that. So you think that a lot of people probably wait a little too long to do that first topping?
In my experience, that's been the case. I top when the plant is really young, and I'm talking about like a tiny little piece of material that you could probably pinch off with your fingernail.
Damn. I like that,
And
man.
I do, yeah. So I do that usually, maybe a couple days after they've been transplanted into like a solo cup or into their, usually people are going from a smaller pot into a larger pot.
Sure. So just as the first few sets come in, you're pinching that thing already.
Yeah.
Wow.
Probably the first, if there's, 4 nodes on there at least, then I can go ahead and pinch it, because those are both going to turn into branches, all 4 sites on,
Right.
each side of the stalk.
Yeah. And if you wait too long, you're just playing catch up by bottoming later, by shaving the legs later on. So
Yeah.
it makes
And
sense.
what I've seen pretty consistently, if you can keep the plant like short and stocky, I feel like it gets a better flower structure. I mean, at least in my case, for the style and cultivation, the cultivation style that I'm using.
Sure. That makes sense, that this flower structure becomes more compact as well. Hey, this is kind of random, but we're right here on the subject of plant training and flower compaction. Do you do any of that back budding technique? Have you seen this, where people snip just the tops of their colas and flowers to try to get them to stop that spear-like stretch and kind of build into like a... Have you heard of this back budding or back building technique?
No.
Haven't heard of it. I just heard of this just recently. Let me know what you think. And it's a tiny little bit you're taking off the cola. I don't know. We'll follow up. But okay, Limarilla fucking looks amazing. Get ready for a flood. You're doing some pheno hunts. Before we wrap up the genetics thing, tease what's coming up. I know you said the Mac cross, but anything else you can kind of tease as your like next big breeding project or your next big thing?
Yeah. So what we're going to be doing is I'm going to probably release the Limarilla as a reg line. I'm going to do Limarilla version 2. So, but I have a lot of Limarilla seeds to choose from, phenos to choose from. So I'll be able to select an awesome male. That's one of the things I'm going to work on. And then I'm going to try to find a really awesome gas times Mac V2 male to use on some line work. So I'll probably hit that into a Black Lime Reserve. I'll probably do some other crosses with the Black Lime. I also have the F1 Royal that Kevin Joger gave me, and Mandelbrot's OG. I might do some work with those. There's a lot of potential to do a lot of different things. I just, I haven't really right now. I'm going to pheno hunt the stuff that I have. It's not going to be stuff that was released. It was stuff that I did small amount for myself to search through. But I think at the end of the year is usually when I do all my releases or have everything kind of coming up. I do have something that will hit probably in the middle of the year, which is Limarilla times Das Funk. Das Funk is I think it is Granola Funk times Mac, and that was created by My Name is Earl, who also did the high divorce rate, which was I'm growing that out, and High Times reposted that on their page.
That's right. That pick got blown up. Got blown up. That high divorce rate looks like a fantastic strain.
Yeah, his gear is phenomenal. I'm not sure if he has any of the stuff left that he made after that post went
viral. That's
but
cool, man.
I'll tell you what, he's a great breeder and he's great at what he does. And so I gave him the F2 breeder cut of Limarilla, and he's working that. He's working that right now. He's doing the cross, and then we're going to test out the seeds, check them for stability. And then that's going to be the next release. That's probably be in the middle of the year. I haven't even told anybody really about that. I haven't advertised it or anything. So,
you heard it here.
First look right now.
Love it. Thank you, Brandon. The Growcast listeners love hearing that type of stuff. Again, go give him a follow, Rust.Brandon. You know and love his genetics. But if you're not following him, maybe you're just coming on to this podcast from New York. Go and give Brandon Rust a follow, because he is really pushing the limits in organic cannabis gardening, especially on a large scale. We'll be right back with the great Brandon Rust, but before that, gotta give love to Delta Leaf Labs, deltaleaflabs.com, for the cheapest, fastest sex testing out there. Use code GROWCAST for free shipping on your sex tests, and one code user is selected to win free tests every month. And send us a screenshot of you using any GROWCAST code to be entered to win free seeds every month. Holy crap, that's a lot of giveaways. Delta Leaf Labs, baby. Stop wasting time sex testing. You've heard it before. You can get your sex tests so early and so quick so that you can cull the males way before they ever show sex. Simply crush up one little cotyledon in a little test, mail it out to Delta Leaf Labs. They will send you results quickly and accurately. You'll know the males. You don't have to waste time. You don't have to wait the suspense. You don't have to pay for fertilizer and soil, waste space. I don't do it any other way. I use Delta Leaf Labs every single time. Visit deltaleaflabs.com. Use code GROWCAST for free shipping to be entered to win free tests, and DM us a snapshot of you using our code on Discord or on Instagram or email or whatever, and you'll be entered to win free seeds. It's a lot of goodies coming at you from GROWCAST and from Delta Leaf Labs. All right, everybody, let's get back to Brandon Rust. Can I kind of pick your brain about a couple of posts that I've seen on your feed?
Yeah, go ahead.
So the biggest one, and this is something I've teased to my audience as well, is you recently, well, semi-recently, made a post about organic inputs, organic gardening. You're a soil guy. And you were talking about animal-based inputs, like your bone meals and all of that sort of stuff, versus plant-based inputs, soluble seaweed powder or whatever it may be. And you had a really interesting take. You don't use animal products in your grow because of several different reasons, but they're inferior and you say kind of like dangerous, right? Can you dig down on that for my audience?
Yeah. Okay. So this is what I've seen. So, I've been cultivating for a really long time, but now that I'm doing organic at scale, I use all data. So I have to do the actual agronomy work, and I get tests back on the soil, and I do this bi-weekly. And so I can look at what is in the soil, how the soil is being affected by what particular inputs are being used. What's happening is there's several things that I don't like to use. I don't like to use things that come from the ocean. That includes kelp, which probably a lot of people don't want to hear.
Whoa.
And also animal products. Uh-huh. And there's a reason, right? Because when it comes to ocean products, you get two things that can be really detrimental to soil and that people will build up over time, and they are antagonistic. And that's going to be sodium and chloride. So those two things are elements that are antagonistic to all of your cations, like magnesium, calcium, and potassium.
Okay.
And those are all really, really essential for your plant. And right. So if you're using, inputs like crab meals and crustacean meal and kelp, and you're compiling all these ocean products, you're most likely building up your sodium and chloride levels to levels where they become antagonistic and start blocking out your other inputs. Not only that, but typically if you're using meals in general is something I don't use, um, you're not getting something that's balanced. So I use single mineral inputs, and that's because I'm looking at the sufficiency and the balance of what's in the soil and how that falls into solution when I'm watering using saturated paste testing. And so if I'm deficient on something like potassium, I don't want to add something like langbonite, which has potassium in it, but also has a ton of magnesium. And magnesium, if my levels are already good, or if maybe my levels are a little bit high on magnesium, but so I'm trying to push the potassium, and I add something that has magnesium also, then I'm not balancing that, and I'm causing more harm.
That makes perfect sense. So if you have a sulfur deficiency and you're going hammer it with some Epsom salts, but the magnesium from the Epsom salts is overloading your soil, you're doing yourself damage. Is that a kind of layperson's input?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm looking at the sufficiency, making sure there's enough of what I need in the soil when it falls into solution, and then I'm looking at the balance of all the minerals that are there.
Just enough. I gotta ask you though, man, because people are going to be writing with specific questions. We got to go over some of these single mineral inputs. Like, what do you use for the big three? What are your single mineral inputs? If you could just rattle them off.
Okay, so the biggest thing that I use for nitrogen is amino acid nitrogen. So hydrolysate, which is something that I also sell on
Bokashi?
my Bokashi website.
Nice.
And for all your listeners, they can put in discount code Bokashi for 10% off on all purchases, I think, for like the next month.
Woot woot. Thank you, sir.
Yep. And so what this does is, what happens is typically people associate nitrogen with like leaf growth, and that's not exactly what's happening. So nitrogen is responsible for the building of amino acids and proteins. And what happens is the plant accumulates the nitrogen in a mineral form in the soil, and then it uses its metabolic energy to convert this nitrogen into amino acids, and then those amino acids are constructed into proteins, things that create things like lignin and cellulose and things that actually make the plant itself.
Mm-hmm. Grow the plant meat.
Yes. And so the cool thing about amino acids is that L-chain amino acids are biologically available in the plant root zone. So you can give them these amino acids, and the plant is going to save energy because it can take up to, I think, like 18% of the plant's metabolic energy to turn the nitrogen into amino acids.
Whoa.
So you're saving possibly up to 18% of the plant's energy in the conversion process. So if you give them amino acids directly, and here's the thing, the base component of that amino acid is a nitrogen molecule. So, once they have those amino acids, they're stored in the plant tissue. If they need to, what happens too is they can also, those amino acids, those proteins, when they're stored, they can be broken down in the plant to release energy in the form of adenine triphosphate, ATP, which is the energy exchange currency for all biological processes.
Right,
So all cellular mechanics require ATP, which is why phosphorus is so important, because it's the base chain of that molecule is 3 phosphate molecules.
ATP critically important, like you said, for all living things. That transfers nice into phosphorus, though. I hate to just make you list all these inputs, but I need to know.
So for phosphorus inputs, I like to use single mineral. I like to use CalPhos, right? And phosphorus is a really tricky one because that also adds calcium. And so you can't really use it to get your phosphorus up. You can only use it to increase a deficiency in calcium. Now, the interesting about phosphorus and organics is the hardest thing to get from an input, because you can usually only get it from things like bone meals. And usually, liquid bone meals, they're use phosphoric acid, which is not organic. And then even if you do go that route, the problem with the bone meals that they're usually contaminated with heavy metals like cadmium. And that's another reason why I'm not using animal inputs, is because the animal inputs are not, a lot of these inputs, they might be okay or sanctioned for organic cultivation, but you need to be looking at the heavy metals, because that's what you're putting in your soil, and cannabis is a heavy metal accumulator.
Where are those coming from? Is that because of our fucked up agricultural system? Okay.
Yes.
So it's not that animal. This is what I really wanted to dig in before we got to continue down that train of thought. It's not that animal products are necessarily inherently bad. Is it more that our agricultural system here is so fucked up that every animal input is probably laden with either antibiotics or heavy metals or hormones or something bad?
Yeah, I mean, it's most likely from the diet. If one thing that we actually don't do is we don't heavy metal test our food. If you think about agriculture and the way that we farm, a huge, massive amount of produce is produced just for livestock, and then it's transported to deserts where they're raising cattle, and it's a whole mess. The system needs to be revamped. So that's one of the reasons I don't use the animal inputs. But also, too, if you think about the breakdown of a body and the associated microbiology that is typically associated with the breakdown of flesh, it's not something that's typically associated with being healthy. It's typically, it gives off bad smells like putrescine, and it produces methane and sulfide compounds and things that aren't conducive to the rest of the biology. And that's one of the reasons that I also don't use it. I'm not saying that that's certainly happening in soil, but I've seen that when you're using single source mineral inputs or plant-based inputs, I'm not seeing root disease.
Wow.
I'm not seeing the type of, things that I had seen in the past when I used to use those types of products.
So maybe just a little bit cleaner. Okay, so that's really interesting and kind of goes against what I was thinking, but makes perfect sense. And just really quickly, I think you might find this interesting. I was doing an exploration on blue zones for one of my other shows. Blue zones are the 5, or maybe there's 7 now, areas in the world where people are living for an extraordinary amount of time. And they go and they study their diet, and they find out why people live. These are people living into their hundreds regularly when other peoples of the same nation aren't. So they look at their diet, and for instance, our diet here, don't eat cheese, don't eat meat, all that's bad for you. Well, you go to these places and they eat all those things. They're largely plant-based, but for instance, in Sardinia, where people live a very long time off the coast of Italy, they drink sheep's milk all day. It's like dairy, dairy, dairy. But the sheep's milk comes from sheep that are grass-fed, free-roaming. They've been there for centuries. So it's about the quality of the supply chain, and it's making a lot of people reconsider.
It's like this. The basis of plant health is nutrition, right? And it's the same thing, because these systems, they mirror themselves in nature. Again, I've said this before, as above, so below. And that mantra from these occult knowledge, all these ancient practices, is that all these systems in nature mirror each other.
So true.
And you're going to get out what you put into a system. So and that's one of the things that I try to promote. Like, that's why I promote organic cannabis, because people are looking at what I'm doing. And if I can do something efficiently at a really low cost, maybe I can change the way that they're farming too, because we can't continue to farm the way we are, but also we also can't continue to go down the path that we are as like humans with our mentalities towards other people. And part of that is the fact that we don't have healthy diets because our food is not nutritionally dense. Like, we need the basis of health, whether it's, physical or mental or spiritual. All of those things tie in to our inputs, right? Just like our plants.
So true, man. If you don't have your health and fitness and your cell biology right, just like with growing, you're just not going to function optimally. So really cool,
So
man.
we're really, we live in a kind of chemical universe,
Yeah.
and biology is driven by bacteria, and that's one of the reasons you talk about them drinking these milks, these sheep's or goat's milks. I'm sure they're full of beneficial probiotic bacillus, lactic acid bacteria, and other types of microorganisms that are conducive to their gut tract and their internal
You
systems
nailed it.
that
You nailed it.
because the thing is, just like plants have endophatic bacteria and fungi that are associated with, the rhizosphere, the phyllosphere, and the endosphere that are completely internal, and they operate and they can protect and they do different things, different, cellular mechanisms and biological mechanisms, and same thing for our bodies.
Exactly. And the milk that we're drinking over here is not the same. It is a fucking completely different beast, pardon the pun. So, and same thing with the inputs, man. However, I'm interested that you said on top of all that aside, you don't like the idea of the rotting flesh and the kind of bad bacteria and bad microorganisms that brings. Very interesting stuff, man.
I mean, don't get me wrong, bad microbes can grow on anaerobic plant material, but a big part of that is, for what I'm doing is the biological crop steering part, where I'm adding specific types of microorganisms, because before we had talked about trying to figure out what these things are doing, how they're functioning, and I've gone and I've done that. Through the testing, I can actually see what the Microbe Plus from Bokashi Earthworks is doing. I can see that it cycles phosphorus, because the thing about phosphorus, right? The way that we get it is it's biologically processed. It's biologically cycled from phosphorus, and the only plant available is phosphate. So that phosphate, it comes from the biology.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing that, and we're seeing manganese being cycled very, very well. So even if you don't have a lot of phosphorus in your soil and it's low on the soil test, but we can see that it's falling into solution really well, we know that's a sign of the biology, cycling that. So that's what we're seeing when we use the beneficial microbes, and we're seeing manganese being very soluble, an increase in small increases in micronutrients, but those are the big ones, and that's huge phosphorus, because there's companies that charge a lot of money for phosphorus stabilizing bacteria, and my product is showing with the data that's what we're able to do, and it's so inexpensive.
Bring it all on. Bring it all on.
And that phosphorus, again, ATP, it's about getting more energy. Another thing that I think I'd like to share with your viewers too is, if your soil is deficient in nitrogen and you're relying on things like nitrogen fixing bacteria and whatnot, your plant could be expending up to another 15% of its photosynthetic energy trying to sustain those relationships, and it might not even be a sufficient amount that it could get. So your plant will suffer a massive energy loss on both fronts, because the small amount that it does, it then has to transform into amino acids. So in deficient soil, a plant could potentially be losing 33% of its total photosynthetic energy trying to acquire nitrogen and convert it into protein.
Jeez, man, you're blowing our mind here. So this is, if we're thinking, oh, this plant's growing a little bit slow. I feel like the average grower is like, let's add more nitrogen. You're saying there's so much going on between where the plant focuses its energy, whether it's fixing nitrogen or trying to fix something in the soil, or just completely bypassing those processes and just going straight to growth.
And so that's the cool thing, right? The plant doesn't release those photosynthates, root exudates into the soil if it already has what it needs. If it's got if it's got all the amino acids in abundance that it needs, it's not mining for nitrogen. It's not releasing exudates to try to create these symbiotic relationships. The same with phosphorus. A lot of people are overdoing it by using teas and by adding like all these biology, like you might not need any of that stuff if you have sufficiency and balance in your soil, because the plant isn't going to sustain a relationship with a microorganism if it's not needed.
Man, that is so fascinating. It's really changes the way that a lot of soil growers are probably going to think about their grow and think about what to add. I'm going to bring it back around, if that's okay, all the way back to the inputs you were using. This has been an incredible episode, man. So thank you. But I have to finish drilling down on this. You mentioned the your favorite not single mineral, phosphate input, but it has the calcium on the back. Do you find that plants consume a lot more calcium than maybe we originally thought? I feel like that's been kind of a common theme on this show.
Yeah, so I can tell you right now that if you were to look at my saturated paste test, calcium is always the highest.
So what does that mean for a layperson?
Yeah, so in this order, what I'm seeing is calcium, potassium, sulfur, magnesium, and then phosphorus.
Whoa, and that's what they're gobbling up and what's most present in the soil optimally? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Wow. So calcium is we might as well call it a macronutrient.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. So one of the things too, and I'm going to give a little help to all the listeners that are growing organically. You want to have high potassium throughout your whole cycle, almost higher than your nitrogen.
Oh my God.
In veg, and definitely higher than nitrogen in your veg. It's actually the second highest after calcium, and it's almost equal to calcium when you're in flour.
Why is that?
Potassium is super important because it actually is responsible for the folding of proteins. So after the nitrogen has been converted into proteins, while they're being converted, it takes a lot of these metal ions to actually fold them into three-dimensional structures. So that's one of the importance of the potassium. And you really need to push that potassium. And what I typically see is I see magnesium is usually higher than potassium, and that's because it's a higher charge density, and so it's antagonistic, and the plant consumes so much more potassium, and it's really hard to cycle biologically. So it's something that you really has to be consistently added in. And my single mineral input for that would be potassium sulfate, which is a potassium rock mineral. Or you can do foliar applications with Agsil 16, which is potassium silica.
Nice. So that potassium sulfate, that's not going to harm the microbiology or anything?
No. So none of these mineral sulfates, with probably the exception of copper sulfate, are going to be damaging to the biology in soil. And the copper sulfate is only if you overdo it. Which is easy to do, because when we're talking about some of these mineral inputs, we're talking about maybe a teaspoon or two per yard of soil.
Jeez.
So you're not using a massive amount of these either.
Good Lord. Okay. That's super interesting. Mary Beth Sanchez, Eat Your Heart Out, potassium. She was talking all about this recently, so just shout out to her. Incredible stuff, man. I'm going to be looking into each of those inputs. The potassium tip, incredible. What do you do for magnesium?
Magnesium is always Epsom salt.
Oh, easy. Boom. Bing, bang, boom.
Magnesium sulfate. It's an easy one. It's all inexpensive. So what the best thing about the cultivation techniques that I employ is that you can buy everything in bulk very inexpensively, with the exception of amino acid nitrogen. It's a little more expensive. But things like Epsom salt, things like iron sulfate, potassium sulfate, gypsum. I mean, gypsum costs me, I think, $14 for 50 pounds.
Right.
And 50 pounds will get me through an entire cycle. And I'm talking about that greenhouse on my page, which is a lot of weed. I mean, several hundred pounds.
Which is a lot of weed. Interesting stuff, man. So you use the gypsum. Do you worry about the buildup or the hard pan layer, or do you do a till or a mix? You're a no-till guy, right?
Well, I do top dresses, so
Oh,
I'll agitate it into the topsoil when I reset and stuff like that. It's not going to harm anything.
not
Again,
concerned
I'm
about it.
not worried about things like mycorrhizal and disturbing those types of things because I'm not using those products. I favor things like trichoderma
Sure.
over those because they have more benefits as far as pathogen suppression and then the ability to create cytophores, which are the highest iron affinity. They're natural chelating iron compounds. So it can help iron, which is a really difficult thing in organics too, because iron, it goes through such extremes in on oxidation redox potentials. And the only biologically available to plant type of iron is ferrous iron, Fe2 plus. And what happens is because it has two charges on it, those two, that plus, 2 plus, it has these electrons that want to bond to other. It wants to gain another charge, and
Right.
then it falls into Fe3 plus, which is oxidized iron, and that's not available. So as soon as
Whoa.
the ferrous iron hits water, it starts to oxidize, and so you start losing the ability for that mineral to be available. And that's one of the importance of things like fulvic. Fulvic can help chelate that. Also, it's one of the important things of like the trichoderma. It can help kind of chelate those and make that oxidized iron into biologically available iron.
Man, absolutely blowing our minds, because I'm thinking, I got a great iron product that I use, but it comes from the sea. Next time we're going to have to dive into your soil mix because it sounds.
No. Listen. Everybody who's using kelp continuously, you need to maybe reconsider. And this is why. And this is why, right?
I love that careful choice of words.
Kelp, like cannabis, is a bioaccumulator. We're talking about a plant, right? Its ancestor is algae, and it grows at a rate of up to 4 feet per day within a 24-hour period. It is accumulating everything. So if you are getting anything from the ocean, dude, our oceans are fucked.
I know. That's right now, as soon as you said that, yeah, that's what I thought. Let me ask you one thing though. Does that apply to fish waste products too? I mean, obviously, like you said, garbage in, garbage out.
Yep. It applies. That's why I don't use the animal products. Our animal products right now have heavy metals, and specifically for kelp products, that's going to be arsenic.
Fuck.
Arsenic is the biggest, suspect when it comes to arsenic. If you're failing for heavy metals, are you using kelp products? Because that could be it. Also, like using too much glacial rock dust, things like azomite, those things can you have to be able to source your inputs.
I need to dig in on the azomite. We have 1 minute left. Rust, when you have another 30 minutes free, would you mind coming back and visiting the Growcast audience? Our universe has grown so much recently, a lot thanks to guests like you, but we got to do another one, buddy. This has been too enlightening.
Yeah, so I've got tons and tons of info on that, and I'm actually really stoked because my friend from California just showed up at the farm, and I haven't seen him in a while. Tier 1 Farms, you guys can check him out on IG as well.
Man, we got to get you on Growcast TV. We got to connect more. I know you're a super, super busy guy. Throw out all your URLs one more time so that my audience can check out everything you're doing.
Yeah, rust.brandon on IG, and then all the links are in my bio, so you can find my company, Bokashi Earthworks. You can use Bokashi as a coupon code for 10% off right now. And Black Label Organics is my farm, and it's just basically all professional photography on that page. We're just gonna showcase what we do using great visual imagery.
Yeah, it looks amazing, man. Once again, thank you. I know we got to let you go.
I'll be back soon, man. So I think that I could probably do this again within the next week. Within the next 2 weeks.
Sure thing, man. That sounds amazing. We really appreciate you. And like I said, prepare for a flood of messages because you blew our minds today. Everyone listening, thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed this episode. This is Jordan River and Brandon Russ signing off, saying be safe and grow smarter. That's our show. I hope you enjoyed it. I know you did. Before we wrap it up, shout out to jackgreensgardenproducts.com. and all of their wonderful natural pest control and soil conditioner products. You can use code GCListener for a massive 25% discount at the time of this recording. And go and check it out, everybody, because they got the Jack's Bug Be Gone, which it's really my go-to pest spray in veg. It is my favorite pest spray in veg. It's a ferment. It's a hot pepper ferment, but it is just mixed perfectly. And your plants love it, and it is powerful. Kill those bugs dead. If you haven't tried it yet, Jack's Bug Be Gone. Also check out their soil conditioners. Wonderful, wonderful inputs for you organic growers out there. Got to try the Bug Be Gone, though. JackGreensGardenProducts.com. Use code GCListener. You'll thank me later, everybody. Thank you so much for remaining subscribed and for downloading. I said it before, things are going so well. Growcast is bigger right now than it's ever been. Membership over on Patreon is just incredible. I'm in there every single day helping with people, having fun, sharing our successes and struggles. So I just wanted to take a minute and thank you all. I'm blessed to do this. I'm honored to do this, and I look forward to bringing you lots more great growing content for years to come. So thank you again. I appreciate you. I'm honored to serve, and stay tuned for some killer content. We'll see you next time, guys. Bye-bye.